Good afternoon, Chair Bauer-Cahan, members of the committee. My name is Robert Singleton, and I'm the Senior Director of Policy and Public Affairs at Chamber of Progress. We are a tech industry association supporting public policies to build a more inclusive society in which all people benefit from technological advancements. I am here today before you in respectful opposition to AB 1043, which require device manufacturers and app store providers to collect age information from users, transmit real-time bracket signals to developers, and enforce complex new obligations related to parental consent and youth safety features across the entire digital application ecosystem. In short, our concerns with this bill are threefold. Device manufacturers and app store providers should not be the ones managing age signals broadly defined in this bill. The age-banded signals are not sufficiently reliable for developers to avoid civil liability, but would lead unavoidably to age verification, which comes with its own unique privacy concerns. The two largest app store providers and device manufacturers already provide a robust suite of tools for parents to control and manage their child's online experience. Mandating a one-size-fits-all experience detracts from the legitimate and compelling business reasons for managing their app stores, operating systems, and device production presently. So first off, we at Chamber of Progress share the commitment to making the internet a safer place for young people. At the same time, we are strong advocates for preserving user privacy, which we believe this bill would put at risk. While we support the efforts to strengthen protections for minors online, we are concerned this bill's unique approach raises serious privacy, safety, feasibility, and constitutional issues that could ultimately undermine the very protections it seeks to establish. First and foremost, device manufacturers should not be charged with filtering content. Concerns related to content, obscenity, age-appropriate design, etc., are all better addressed at the platform level, where online platforms have developed their own clearly articulated definitions, terms of service, and specialized algorithms designed to identify hate speech and prevent the spread of information, amongst many other things. In fact, online content platforms have entire teams of people with suites of moderation tools whose job is to curate an appropriate online experience for their users. This includes established relationships with law enforcement entities to best meaningfully address the types of dangerous content that AB 1043 seeks to control. Thus, these platforms are clearly better suited to make end users safe on their own services, consistent with the goals of this bill. Granular age bracket signaling increases risk for children. By requiring devices and app stores to not only transmit arbitrary age brackets, 5 to 9, 10 to 12, and so forth, to the entire app developer ecosystem, but also make difficult content decisions, AB 1043 could unintentionally create new dangers for young people online. I won't dive too much into the details, but instead of handing over detailed age brackets to developers, an approach that better protects privacy would be to have app developers utilize the existing tools from app stores to design experiences appropriate for young people without collecting or accessing specific user data. If we imagine the App Store as a shopping mall or even a county fair, there are a variety of stores, experiences, amenities that are all publicly accessible, including to children. We don't require that a mall or an outdoor plaza to check age requirements. We require that the Chili's that serves margaritas to check the ID of the people who are specifically ordering drinks. Whether at the App Store or app level, we caution the legislature to refrain from imposing explicit or de facto age verification mandates that they have consistently proven to be litigious. Instead of creating new hurdles, legislation should support recent efforts by companies like Apple, which has introduced new tools to help developers enhance safety by enabling voluntary age assurance APIs rather than disincentivizing those proactive policies. So for these reasons, amongst many others, we remain in respectful opposition to AB 1043. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here in opposition to this bill? Name, organization, and position.
Hi, Robert Boykin with TechNet in respectful opposition.
Hi, Yadi Yancey with Oakland Privacy.
Can you speak up a little louder? I'm sorry.
Yadi Yancey with Oakland Privacy in respectful opposition.
Thank you. Before I turn it over to Ms. McKinnon, I just am so confused because Chamber of Progress is absolutely the organization that has come in more times than I can count opposing platform level restrictions. So I guess when it's the platform, you don't want us to do it there. And when it's the device, you don't want us to do it there. You want us to do it on the platform. I guess it's whatever is convenient to the opposition. And I will just urge again and again that the opposition needs to come in here with solutions. We have memories that are longer than 3 minutes. So this isn't working. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. McKinnon.
And so thank you to the author again for coming up with some solutions to protect our children because, you know, when the internet, I'm old, so I'm going to say when the internet first came out, when the interweb, my family, we were a Microsoft family in the 90s, and me and my husband helped to create the Microsoft child protection. But they didn't have targeting then. It wasn't even social media. That was just for them when they're searching the web. You can go in and put restrictions on what they can search. But when I look up a face cream, all of a sudden on Facebook, I have 100 advertisements of face creams. So we could do that, but we can't put in age verification. So I don't think it's that hard, because that has to be a lot of data use, that all I did was look up. I wanted to see what one face cream does, and then all of a sudden I have 100 advertisements on face creams. That's the type of targeting that's happening to our children. And we have to have those solutions. So you said that there are controls. Can you give me some examples of those controls?
Yeah, so Apple published February 2005, or 2 months ago, Apple published an entire comprehensive App Store safety suite of tools, including the ability for parents to control when kids can download apps, how they can access different parts of the App Store. And so they've created a bunch of these tools proactively to try and increase that and improve that user online experience. And I would say Android has similar tools for their App Store as well. But both App Stores are different in terms of the standards for developers, who's allowed to participate and submit apps. And so given that there's different and dynamism and competitive advantages for different stores and different devices, the one-size-fits-all approach here is just not as effective as working proactively with the companies.
And then you also mentioned like the malls. When you go to the malls, you're still not being targeted. And when you go to Chili's and have a margarita, they ask for your ID, by the way. You said that you guys are making it safer for children. Give me an example of how your industry is making it safer for children.
Well, beyond the proactive tools that the App Store developers, the folks who are being targeted by this legislation, are doing proactively, I do want to respond really quickly to the threshold question about, if you're looking for a face cream, then you get ads for a face cream, right? And so the claim is that clearly we know who you are if we can target ads. But the threshold for targeting an advertisement to you and having it not land, you don't buy the face cream, no one's harmed in that instance. But when you're imposing civil liability to a certain, like the verification of an actual age range, that's when it's the threshold for serving you an advertisement has little to no harm if we don't get it right. But we have to be certain with the ages if we're going to be held to a civil liability standard.
Well, that's why. Well, I might leave that. You know what? I'm gonna let the chair. She might want to answer that one. But for children, we're talking about 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds. That's different than an adult like myself who has the restraint not to buy these things. But if you have a kid that's trying to look up how to be healthy, and then all of a sudden she's getting diet pills or things that are unhealthy, we need them. We need an age verification. And how hard is that? How much would that cost the company to do?
So we've talked about age verification and a lot of different bills and legislation, and it depends on how you're doing it. I mean, the two de facto things of age verification we have right now would be a form of government ID or biometric data, and that involves collecting more personal information. We just don't want to do that.
I'm sorry. Would you like to answer?
Sorry. Yes, I have a lot of responses. Would you like all of them or just to that specific comment?
An example.
So having worked in this space now since I got here, one of the biggest challenges as we're trying to create safer spaces for our children is we put forth all kinds of bill ideas, and then the companies say, well, we don't know how old they are. And how would we ever know? And when in reality, we know that the companies have literally thousands of engineers devoted to knowing exactly who is on their platform because that's how they make money. It's in their financial interest to know exactly who's there so they can sell them all the different things, right? They know. But it's hard to put that in code and figure out the liability piece of this. So the sort of knowledge standard has been one vexing issue in this space, that this is what this bill in its most simple terms is trying to establish a reliable knowledge standard. So as an example, when my 8-year-old has a tablet, she has an iPad. Sorry, Android. We're an Apple family. And when I set up her profile, I entered in her information. I entered in her age as the mom, right? I put in the different settings. As you can imagine, it's a very controlling environment for her. And I enter that age in. What this bill would then do is if then she tries to go download Snapchat, and she's 8 years old, there would be an age signal sent to the apps at the App Store that says this person's under the age of, they're under the age of 10, I think is what the back bracket was. So then the app would then, or the platform would then definitively have knowledge, knowing exactly what the age of the person is. In its most simple terms, that is what we are trying to establish. Once we can establish a knowledge standard and understand the age, we can then build all the regulation around keeping the kids safe online. So that's what we're trying to establish. Now, our opposition says it's better to work with the companies and do what they're doing. I am more than happy to work with these companies and have them. I also want something that can be implemented, right? And this is incredibly technical. The first phone calls I made when I decided to do this was to Apple and Google, with whom I have spent many hours with in this space, and beg them to come to the table. And they have released age verification ideas. Some of that is worthwhile. Let's codify that then. And let's bring that into the equation and put it into law, because guess what? We also need regulation. We can't just have these companies voluntarily do this on their own. So far to date, that has not created a safer environment. We need regulation and thoughtful regulation. I welcome conversation with the opposition to do that. I've talked to them many, many times. I view this as an upstream solution where you're tackling the age at the very beginning when the parent sets up the account. That way, as kids go through and are trying to download, your average, I think, teenager has 40 different apps on their phone. That age signal will be the most truthful one that also can't be changed.
And so what is the hesitation? Is it the liability?
In terms of?
Like, what's the hesitation for something like that? Is it the liability that the company has to take on now?
Well, we have proactive measures that we're working on, but the app stores are different, and they have different requirements and different conditions of being able to provide an app there. And so it's just not the one size fits all. And why is this bill focusing on absolving the content platforms in lieu of punishing the device manufacturers?
We're not.
No, I'm not asking that. My question, I know you asked me a question, but I'm asking you a question. Is it the liability that the companies don't want to take on? Because once we have this, then the company now has to take on liability when they don't do the right things. Because what I fight is a good faith effort. So right now we're saying, okay, we're going to let the company take a good faith effort with our children. So is it the liability that the companies really don't want to have to deal with?
It's the liability, but it's also the liability that goes to developers as well, for the applications to now receive this information and have to curate their experience.
Thank you.